morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on this special morning of Wellsday. Together with me is Michał from Auckland, and
Yep.
I'm in Thailand. So today we will be talking about the flexibility of work, and Michał is going to present us some pluses and minuses about flexible working, and then I will add some my thoughts to the presented thesis and argumentation. So, Michał, the mic is yours, and let's do it.
Right. Hi, good morning, kia ora, or good afternoon, because in Auckland it's right now 9:26 p.m. You can say it's quite late. All right, well, flexible working is not a new concept as we know. So just as a word of introduction, the COVID changed everything, the way we work, and frankly, I thought that we passed that flexible work discussions, but we're not. We still see the companies, I'll say struggle, but it is a challenge for a lot of companies to put a framework in the way we work and some rules against flexible or hybrid working or remote working, as they say. And the discussion is still on. So that's quite interesting that a couple of years after COVID, you would expect that everything will be set. But a lot of companies do have rules and frameworks, but a lot of them find that it's a tricky situation. So yeah, today I'd like to just talk about some pros and cons for the flexible working, and feel free to jump in and add your perspective as well, because that will be, I think it might be a little bit different from what it's in on New Zealand and Australia. It'll be good to know different perspectives. All right, well, pros and cons, and I think that we can start with the good things. The good things about the flexibility of work is that you can have better work-life balance. I think that's the number one thing, that if you can manage your own time and adjust your working hours, your days and place of work, you're not bound to one place, you can have a better work-life balance. You can spend more time with your family, your friends, or just doing some errands or anything that you want, because you don't need to commute. So a lot of people save times, especially in Europe as well. But here in Auckland, it took me, as an example, it took me 45 minutes to travel to work this morning. Usually it's 20 minutes, but today traffic was awful. And there you go, 45 minutes, my life just lost in traffic, right? So I think work-life balance, having this time, and it's good for people. And it gives them also a little bit of more ownership of their own work and how they're going to structure their time and during the day, during the week. We talked about the flexible working is not only about the way when you work. So I think it's no longer work from home, it's work from anywhere. It doesn't matter where you base or where you work, as long as the work is done, basically. But also it's all about the flexibility of the time and hours or days of your work. It doesn't mean that you can change your shifts if you're a shift worker, but you can adjust your time you spend on work. So for example, today I work from, let's say, 9:30 till 3 p.m. and then I had a break, and I make up for those hours in the afternoon a little bit. It doesn't mean that I need to always work 8 hours, because one day is 8 hours, one day is 9, the other is 7. So there is a flexibility also in terms of the hours and during the week. But it does give me a lot of flexibility in terms of how and when I want to do my work.
I've got a question to
So
what you said. Is it common in New Zealand and in Australia that the assessment of the employee is based on performance instead of attendance? Because if you say, for example, that you can cut several hours from your workday, that is stated in the employment contract, for example, 8 hours a day. So is it a common attitude of the employees, and is it allowed by employers, and is it accepted by employers that you can freely cut a couple of hours from your work week based until your duties are done, yes, and job is performed. Is it okay?
Well, it is by law, in especially New Zealand. I'm not sure about the Australian law, so I would need to check that. But you can change those to say hours of work, and you need to have it in your work agreements. We do have in work agreements in the full time, you get on average 40 hours per week. No more. Like you should.
Same in Europe,
Yeah,
more or less.
which means 40 more or less, of course. And there needs to be flexibility from both sides. But this is all about the agreements, what's in your contract and your agreement is bounding. But what is that your, let's say, informal or less formal agreement with your employer and your manager, it's a different story. You can have, like I have with my team as well, we do have this agreement that on average, yes, it's 40 hours per week. And if you tell me today, hey, I don't feel like I need to do some stuff, I will just do 6 hours today. Sure, no problem, no worries. Or you need to go to see a GP or whatever. And next day, you're probably gonna make up those hours, or when I need, or when there is a need, you will do some more time almost, or make up for those hours. But really is more for the product or the services, the product, the end work that you do than hours, really.
Okay, so but you need to proclaim that, for example, this day you are cutting your hours off, or do you need to have an allowance from your supervisor, or this is like a fluctual working basis that we all know that you're supposed to be around 40 hours a week, but okay, it's okay, you can be 30 or 35. And you also mentioned the example that sometimes there's a situation that you will work more. So must it be any balance at the end of the month, for example, that you have worked 160 hours, or is it allowed and is it possible to have these hours deducted and be below 160 hours per month?
So the whole thing is really agreement between you and your manager.
Okay.
There shouldn't be more than 40 hours. Let's make it clear. If it needs to be. So for example, as an employee, I can go to my manager and I can say, look, there's so much that I need to do. It will be way past my 40 hours. And this is for me and my manager to talk about my workloads and decide together. If they can say, so my manager can say, look, this is crucial, this is project. Can you do some work over the weekend, for example? Or can you do not 8 hours, but 10 hours?
Yeah.
And I can, yes, let's do it. So those 2 hours will go to a toil. So time in lieu, which I can again take as like holidays or extra time. So you can do, it's all about the agreement. There is no, I don't know companies that do like counting hours per week and per month and doing that. It's standard is 40 hours. And those fluctuations in hours, it's always needs to be agreed with the manager. It cannot be that you say, for example, you come to me, I'm your manager, and after a week you say, hey, last week, instead of 40 hours, I did 60 hours, so now pay me. No, you didn't have the confirmation from your manager that you can do extra hours, which means, sorry, it's lost. That's why it needs to be done
what about the
before.
opposite? What about the opposite situation? So the employee comes to you and say, because you're his manager or her or somebody else, and this person says, hey, last week I worked only 20 hours, but I performed all the duties I was given. So is it okay or not?
Oh, this is a tricky one.
Yeah.
If you're thinking of the week, you probably should have more control over what your people do and how much time they spend on the work. It's not
because
I'm not saying about micromanaging.
Because the first thought that comes to my mind is, if my employee did perform all the duties within 20 hours, maybe the workload is not big enough. Yes, maybe I should put more workload on this person. But would it be equally given to all employees, for example? Because maybe this person is just as fast as faster than any other employee in your workspace. Yes.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it is this person ability to work faster. So would it be
Mhm.
okay, and would it be politically or uh, uh, politically fine to give this person more workload just basing on this person ability to work faster? Because
Mhm.
it can cause a situation of inequality, yes?
Mhm. Well, and that's a good question. I think it's all case by case, really. And
Mm,
if you have a good manager who have good relationship with their team, you can identify this is what you describe as a top performer, probably a high performance, someone who's do easily their job and have plenty of time, right? Usually top performance, if you for example say they in 20 hours they done everything. If you're top performer, you want to do more. You want to be challenged. You're not slacking at work. You have
mm,
development or career progression in your head and you want to do more. So I'd say if you have someone like that, and this is from my experience as well. If you have good relationship with your people, they can come to you and say, hey, I've done all my work for this. For example, it's Wednesday. I've done all my work for the week. I'm kind of bored. What's next? Can I do something more? Because I'm bored.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I don't feel that this is an issue, but you need to have good relationship with your people and be honest and open about the workloads and have a discussion, not on a weekly basis. I'm pretty sure, and this is about talking about flexible working, and the potential issue is how you can connect with people and collaborate, right? So if you have those rules established and you connect with people regularly, you would most likely avoid the situation that you just described.
Okay, clear. Thank you. Let's move to the next point.
Yeah, well, that's a good challenging questions. I like that. All right, well, just with the pros, so good things about the flexible working, talk about the work-life balance, which is good, the autonomy as well. So people can think you're owner of your own calendar, your tasks, so your responsibilities, you get more ownership, which is great. And the productivity, which is both pros and cons, depends on which research really you look at. Some of the research say there's a more productivity increase when you have flexible working. Some of the research say it's actually decrease. And I've heard another one that says when you introduce flexible working at the very beginning for the couple of months, the productivity increases, but then it drops
Mm,
suddenly. So really depends on which research you're thinking of, which region, probably the industry as well. So those are the differences. And with I was thinking of one of the things that we don't usually say about the flexible working. So we, as advantages, we say about the time, we say about the work-life balance, uh, more money as well. Like this is financially better because you don't pay for petrol, you don't pay for buses or trains, etc. So the more money should stay in your pocket as well, which is great. Um, but also what we don't, I haven't heard much about it, is that because of your flexible working arrangement, you can adjust the time of your work that suits your energy levels best. So as an example, I am not a morning person at all. And if you ask anyone, they usually say, don't talk to me before 9 a.m. And
okay.
if I haven't had my first coffee, don't even bother, right?
So I'm glad that we've got
But
our
that's me.
recordings in your evening.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't agree to have it in the morning. But I do work best in the evenings and nights. Really, this is my time. This is when I get most creativity, juices flowing through my veins, and I do have energy. So if you are mindful or aware of your energy spikes during the day and how you manage your energy. So example, from 8 to 10, not really. I can do some boring work, not really say requiring my full attention. Then we move to say high peak and say, yep, 11 a.m. I would say, yes, that's energy. Let's do meetings. Let's do this. Let's do that. I can give some creative work. Then 2 p.m. it drops again. I need my second, third, or coffee. It's back again. there is this middle ground from say, 4 p.m. to 8 for different things. And then suddenly 8 p.m. I was like, yep, I can actually do, I have an idea for doing stuff. So by flexible work, and this is great advantage, and I have in my job as well, that I can do work in different hours that suits me best. Of course, one thing to remember, I need to make sure that I'm available for key people or people in general for different meetings, and during the day, that is the time, so from 8 a.m. ish to 5 p.m. is the time that usually you should be available in some of those slots for some meetings. You can't, I wouldn't be able to just say my working hours from now are from I don't know, 7 p.m. till 1 a.m. It wouldn't work.
Yes, it's quite understandable because yeah, some people are early morning persons, so they wouldn't be even able to communicate clearly with you after 7 p.m., right?
Yeah, and it needs to work for both employees and
Sides, yeah,
employers.
that's right.
And so that's the key thing. And you need to keep everything in balance and not, I say, abuse your flexible working arrangement. That's the key thing. But I think that this energy, and we're talking about when well-being and how it works with people. If we kind of like, if we're thinking before COVID, everyone works from 8 to 4 or 9 to 5 jobs. That was the usually. But the energy cycle is different for every person. So it kind of say, one mold that fits everyone, you have those differences. And if flexible working can help to boost people, like individual productivity, because they can work in the times that suit best their energy levels, I can see this as a huge advantage for the flexible working
I've
arrangements.
got one hint. It can be changed because I'm the person who used to be the most productive in the evening and night hours. And I've changed
Mhm.
this. I started to get up earlier and forcing myself at the beginning to be ready to perform around 10 a.m. So
Mhm.
during my first morning coffee. But I also have a rule that I set for myself that after 9:30 p.m. I don't touch my computer
Mhm.
for business purposes. I usually try not to open my computer at all, just to avoid blue light and to align. I try to align my body and my productivity levels to the cardiac rhythm of the day. So um, the most productive energy that flows from the sun starts from the 10
Yeah.
a.m. Yes, so this is what you said
Mhm.
a couple of minutes before, that you've got your energy peak from 10 a.m. just to
Yeah.
around 2, and then you have got a big
And
decrease in your energy level, and then you
mm,
regain your energy curve in the very late evening, right? So what I
mm,
did to myself is that I totally changed the hours that I try to work within as a time frame. And the result of it is that I sleep better. I've got more
mhm.
energy during the day, and I feel that my body regenerates better as well. So it can be changed. It's not very
Uh,
easy because you need to change your habits, like wake up habits, evening
yeah.
habits as well. But it's worth a try. This is a hint from
Mhm.
my side.
Yeah. Well, and I always say whatever works, right? If you're happy with, like, I'm happy with my working arrangements and my energy and peaks and troughs, etc. during the day, I'm happy to do some work in the afternoons and evenings. Uh, and I still have a good night's sleep, usually.
Mhm.
Um,
That's good.
uh, yeah. So it works for me, but it can change. So even like flexible working arrangements, if you do have those arrangements, it's not set in stone. It can change, right?
Mhm.
And in the law, like in New Zealand law, you do have those working arrangements that needs to be reflected or should be reflected in your employee agreement, and they can change. You can always ask or request change in your working arrangements. So that's absolutely doable as well.
Yeah, regarding the time flexibility, I would also mention here the time difference zones as well, as we experience between us. Yes, for you is the evening, your favorite time of the day for working. For me, it's
Yes.
afternoon right now, and for Europe is morning. So also about saying about the flexible work, you can also take advantage of the time flexibility or disadvantages from the time flexibility as well. When I was considering moving from Europe to other country, I also took into consideration the South America, and the main disadvantage and what discouraged me the most was the time difference uh,
Right.
because Europe wakes up when you are in the total night. So I would have to work and in the midnight time, which was
Right.
totally
That's not the
unacceptable for
time.
me. Yeah, that's just a disaster.
Mm.
So sometimes this time flexibility is not possible to be beneficial for you, and this
Mhm.
also hits some not maybe not a minor, a major group, I think, of specialists that work
Mm.
remotely and are situated and placed in the different parts of the world. For if you are
Mhm.
working for Europe from America, or if you are working for America, for example, nor for South
Mm.
America, and you are living in New Zealand, right, or in Australia, and you've got a 12 hours difference, yes? It's a 12, but sometimes bigger number, yeah?
Well, depends on where
Yeah,
in for Europe right now. Well, it used to be 12 hours, but now we have the daily savings, and like I say in Europe and
it's
in
11
New
for
Zealand
Europe.
each time.
Yeah,
It's 10 hours now between New Zealand and say Poland, for example.
okay.
But it's will be what 16 hours right now, I think, between us and United States,
Yeah,
I
so
think,
it's
or
totally,
East.
yeah, it's totally messed up. So uh,
Yes.
yeah, because we usually consider the working flexibility regarding the time within one time zone, and right now we are in the place of the world and in the time it's 21st century, and uh, a lot of people are working remotely from different countries to the servicing other countries. And when planning this and be sure of being beneficial from this time flexibility, it's also worth considering which time zone that you work with. And for example, that your team member, if you are working in a group but remotely connected, also can be impacted by these time changes as well.
Hmm. And it kind of sway the conversation towards the disadvantages or cons of
Oh,
flexible
sorry.
working.
No, it's just my
No,
fault.
no,
But
no. It's actually good because it is a good example of the disadvantage. It can be advantage that you can work from anywhere and you can adjust your working hours and to suit, for example, different time zones and different customers, clients, or your colleagues from different countries as well, right? But at the same time, it can be disadvantage as it is very disruptive, and that's one of the cons, that it can be disruptive for the collaboration, team culture, and feeling like the belonging and being a connectivity, not connectivity, feeling connected to others. So basically
mm,
belonging. There's another word for that.
mhm,
Um, and that is it is something that companies and managers struggle, especially like working with remoting or managing remote teams. It's not easy. How you get people together, how you make sure that they feel connected, that it's very different than if you have people in the office and people, somewhere in the world, and how you make sure that they stay connected.
mm,
We have, especially like in COVID, I remember I've hired someone during COVID for my team, and we didn't see each other for 6 months, like face to face, because it was all online.
mhm,
And it's very strange. And this person said that they struggled very much to stay connected with everyone because the only way they see other people is this,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Avatars. So that's one of the disadvantages, something we need to be aware of. That flexible working, yes, it's great, and remote working, but at the same time, what we can do as companies managers to make sure that people stay connected. So having those team days, for example, in the office, or having those catch-ups that we talk about everything else than work. Make sure that if you have people in different time zones, you can have morning tea, so people can bring coffees and just have, yeah, let's have a coffee. But other people can have afternoon drinks, for example, right? They
Hmm.
stay connected, and this is how you can make sure that people see each other, interact with each other, that are not only about the business, because you really need that um connect or connectedness, I would say, outside of the business world.
Yeah,
That's
the
important.
sense of being a part of a group. So we are coming back again to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the
Mm.
feeling of belonging, yeah, to the group, to
Yeah.
sharing that you share your beliefs, emotions, values, and so on.
Yeah, and even and if you're thinking of engagement surveys, the most, I say, standard or well known is the Gallup Strengths Finder, and Gallup. I think they have the 8 questions for the engagement, 8 or 12, and one of them is, I have a good friend at work, and having this relationship with other people at work, it's very important. And flexible working arrangements, which means you can see your colleagues and friends maybe once a week, maybe once a month. It's very difficult to build good relationship with someone just being online.
Yeah,
Because
or to
I mean,
sustain one.
yeah, and one of the things really with if you're in the office, you can chat with people over and say the water cooler, right? Discussions, conversations. But you go for a coffee with someone, you can just I can approach you at your desk like, hey, how's it going? Can we have a chat, etc. Online, you really need to have a reason to call someone on Teams or even a phone, right? It's not just like,
Hmm.
hey, how's it going? What you doing? You really say, oh, yeah, I'm good. What's up? How can I help you? Right? It's immediately because you're calling me, it means you want something. It's not to
Because
have a
this is
chit
a
chat.
business contact, not a
While,
personal one.
yeah, and in the office or any other space, those things mix. And you can still have a business conversation over coffee, but you go outside, so you build a relationship on a different level.
Hmm.
So that's why one of the say disadvantages of the flexible working. And also, I think we talked about the work-life balance, which is great. You can do things and arrange or adjust your working hours to suit your abilities and your families and other requirements. But at the same time, some people might have issues with just switching off.
Yeah,
And
that's true. I used to be
because
a person like this.
yeah, of course, me too, guilty, right?
Hmm.
And because you're just in your home, you do quite often meeting after meetings, and you do stuff, and you forget to eat, you forget to just take breaks. So it can have affect an impact on your health, and also you sit for the whole time most of the day, and if you're in the office, you go for a coffee, you actually go for a coffee.
That's right.
And when you're at home, you probably just take this 5 meters walk to your kitchen, make yourself coffee, and go back to your seat, right? And you do
Yeah.
stuff. Same with lunches, same with everything else. So I think that's important to acknowledge that yes, it's good for work-life balance, but also there is a dark side of it if we're not manage our time and our energy and our arrangements effectively and mindfully, I'd say.
Yeah, there was one more research from 2022, I think. I cannot remember the name of it, but people claimed in this research that their family relations got worse during working from home because suddenly all the problems that usually people let in the home and went to work to get a relief
Yeah.
and separate from their mates and so on
Hmm.
were accumulated and they couldn't run out of them. So
Hmm.
many relationships were, let's say, put into the fire during this first time of remote working. But if you are
Hmm.
a relationship or any kind of a relationship and you are working online, it's good to remember to give yourself also a space that
Yes.
that your job will not affect your private life and private relationship as well, because it can easily step
Hmm.
into your private life doorstep and make a mess
Yes.
inside.
Yeah. And those are the things really, it's not advantage and disadvantage per se. It's what you do and what's your home office space. For example, how you manage your time and with your family. Is if you have your office that you can close the doors and you say not available from 9 to 5, and it's almost like you're in the office. That's different from working from the lounge or a kitchen table, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone's just moving. And, dogs is barking, kids are running around, etc. It's very disruptive, and it can also make this false assumption that you're always available because you're home. So you're kind of working, but you can stop doing what you're doing and you can help me with something else.
That's right.
No, you actually at work. You're at home, but you're actually working. So I think that that's quite important to have this distinction. And proper office space, we're not even going to go to ergonomics and spine issues and any injuries at home, because
But
this is probably another hour
but
or two.
we should give it at least 60 seconds. And what I can say from my point of
Yeah.
view and experience, many
Yep.
companies are reaching us out because they employees because of the home working or remote working, they've got a huge problems with their spines. And
Mhm.
the cost of, for example, when you are preparing the office space for your employees, the responsibility for providing them accurate assets to perform their work is on you as an employer. And it is your cost. It's going from your capex budget. But when people are going to work from their homes or perform remote working, they are taking on themselves the cost of adjusting the workspace that will support their bodies and minds. And in this, by this I mean accurate lighting, good chair, office chair, good support for your wrists, and so on and so on. I've met some examples of companies in Poland that started to compensate partially the costs of equipping the homes for remote workers with the appropriate office items, but it's not a common rule that is met.
I think it's a bit similar, and this really depends on the company. A lot of companies have. That's actually an example after COVID. One of the companies, I won't say which one, said if you want to work from home, absolutely you can, but you need to provide a proof that you have a screen, like additional screen, and what is your home office setting. So for example, you're not working at the kitchen table and kitchen chair and with your little laptop. You
Mhm.
actually need to have a proper screen, you need to have a proper chair, and you need to have a proper desk. So
So
the
the rest,
ergonomics is
so the responsibility of the equipment, equipping your home office or remote office was put on the employee, you right?
if an employee want. So as an employer, I give you space in my office.
If you reject it,
Right? If you want to work from home, you
yeah,
can. Well, that's in your contract, right? Your place of
right,
work is this location. You can
yeah,
work from home, but we need to make sure that your health and safety is in place as well, your well-being, wellness, etc. So all this ergonomics stuff, it's important for us. So we need to make sure that you do have things. And then if you say, well, I don't have a screen, and it's a cost and a chair. A
yeah,
lot of employers actually were um, subsiding the cost of the home office equipment. So not buying everything for everyone, but
Mhm.
uh, they were lending equipment or providing some good discounts with providers of this equipment. But
Okay.
there were companies actually telling, like, if you want to work from home, you need to give me a send me a picture of your work settings at home. So we need to make sure that you're
Hmm.
good. So yeah, you have different versions of it, of this rule. I think, and this is one of the things that is important for companies to have clear idea of what the hybrid or flexible working means and what are the requirements, or what are the um I'd say rules and frameworks, etc. So as you mentioned in the very beginning, there is no inequality or limited as possible those inequality. So for example, I would like to work from home because it will save me money on commute, etc. But I can't afford a desk and I can't afford a chair and I definitely cannot afford two screens. Um, so I'm kind of need to go to the office when someone's earning more money, they can buy themselves a nice desk, etc. There's a potential inequality if you go
Of
really
course,
deep into
but
conversations, right?
it would be a huge discrimination. I've got plenty of friends who are digital nomads in Thailand, and they're used to work from coffee places. So
Hmm.
there are no ergonomics at all in those places. So according to the rule that you mentioned, they couldn't be the workers of this employer.
Hmm. Yeah, well, in that case, yes,
Yeah,
and that
quite
varies.
crazy for me. It's a quite crazy idea.
But it takes it to the extreme, right? And no extreme is good, but,
Yeah.
for a good reason, really for a good reason, if you're thinking of that. But this is just one of the examples of what
Mm.
companies can do or were even doing, because it's a real example. And so now we talked about this as the pros, cons in terms of this flexible arrangements. I'm thinking of the one of the other disadvantages, potentially, is the effect or impact on remote working and flexible working for communication skills. And we talked about belonging and building relationships, but also the communication skills, especially with, say, younger generations, they can really be affected by it. Like if you say, if you're in the office, you always talk to someone, there's conversations, there's meetings, and you can have interpersonal skills put in tests and you can practice them. If you're stuck in home and doing Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Meets or whatever your
Mhm.
provider is, meetings online, and it's this one meeting, another meeting here, another there, this is not the same. And a lot of people struggle in communicating through those Teams meetings or then talking to real people and say in person. So I think that that's one of the things that could be disadvantage as well if you're thinking only solely about you work totally remotely.
Yeah, I
Um,
would say,
and that
yeah, sorry. Please continue.
so that brings me as a conclusion or just another topic on a lot of people and employers are thinking, what's the good ratio? Is it 1 to 4? So 1 day in the office, 4 days remotely, or 2 to 3, or 3 to 2, or whatever it is. And really depends on people, depends on the needs of employer and what you're trying to do. And in my previous job, for example, we had this rule that we have Tuesdays is our team day. So no matter
Mhm.
what, on Tuesday you are in the office because we want to make sure that the team is connected, and we just spend time together. We go for lunch, etc. Right? And different teams have different team days or different routines or things like that. So that can also, if we have those rules that we want people to be in the office regularly, that can also help people with their communication skills, interpersonal skills, and I think that again, maybe it's not the most important thing that a lot of people think about, but I think we will see the impact of it quite soon as well of people, especially younger generation, not really knowing how to interact in the office space with people. And I'm saying that that's a given or it will happen, but I see that this might be a potential issue.
And did you have any experience with the hot desks at the workplace? Do you know what is
Oh,
it?
of course,
Yes.
it's very
Is it popular? Is it popular in Oceania? Yeah.
it is very popular. A lot of companies have done this, even before COVID, but COVID only strengthened it.
Yeah.
So after COVID and when was the big back to the office movement, a lot of companies discovered, well, they wanted to give people choice and flexible working arrangements. So they discovered that actually their occupancy levels are around 50, 60, 70%. So there is no point of having big office if
Yeah.
it's half empty all the time. But also hot desking, it technically, well, if you work 2 days a week and I work 5 days a week, it doesn't mean that you have a desk for yourself, but just for 2 days and 3 days it stays empty. It doesn't make sense again. So those hot desk arrangements, very popular, and again, good things, bad things. Good because it can help you, employers and companies reduce their costs for lease, for example, for the offices. For people, it can be good in terms of collaboration and sitting with, say, different people sitting around and every day, and you can just build different relationships. The disadvantage, a lot of people just like to have their desk,
Yeah.
and this is their anchor, I call it.
Yeah. Their
And
personal attachment.
yeah, and this is something that is almost like a grounding thing. They know
Yeah.
their place. This is
Yeah.
something that's built, I won't say they're under personality or identity, but they have this one stable thing that they come
Yes.
to the office and they know where they sit, and this is their space. It's almost like creating their own personal space. And some people just don't like that idea of having hot desking, and not feeling very comfortable changing the desks. And we had
Mm.
this in my team right now. It's right. I have my favorite desk, yes, at
Yeah.
work. And we have a booking system, which means I'm booking my desk whenever I need to go to the office. I book my favorite desk. And today it was booked. I forgot to book it. I
How did
came
you
to the
feel?
office, I checked,
How did
and
you
it
feel?
was booked. So I really don't mind because
Okay.
I'm not feeling very attached. I don't have this, I won't say issue because it's not really an issue. It's more like a preference, and it doesn't make me uncomfortable sitting somewhere else. I don't really mind, but I do want to acknowledge people that it is an issue for them. And
Mm.
that's one of the that employers and managers should take into consideration,
That's right.
that if a person is distressed and it causes them, anxiety of coming to the office, not knowing when they're going to sit, etc., let's take this into consideration. But again, it's very important to have a conversation with everyone in the team and make sure that it's clear for everyone. Because that
Mm.
if you don't, it can cause the, inequalities, not feeling being treated fairly, etc., etc.
Also,
But yeah, I don't.
not every desk in the office has got the same place regarding the availability of the sunlight, so reaching the sunlight, which is very important for our, as I mentioned before several times, for our organism. So
Mm,
sometimes this hot desk idea can help, for example, to migrate people to have got
mm,
equal exposure or the sunlight. On the other hand, I
mm,
mentioned this because several friends of mine who work in rural Poland claim that it was before COVID time that the rural Poland introduced this hot desk idea, and people started to feel really discouraged from work because they lost their attachment at the workplace. And sometimes implementing before making any a big move that changes your company culture or organization type within your company, it's worth to make any kind of research to check whether this change will help you or a cause of appearing new problems that will affect your
mm,
company culture, your feelings among the workforce and so on, because
mhm.
it can be easily disturbed.
Yeah, and it can be disruptive. And no, you can ask, if you do your research, you ask people, there's this fear from change, and a lot of
Yeah,
people will have
always.
naturally reluctant and not really. But then you need to implement something and just test it and check. And sometimes it will leave a bitter, let's say, feeling or taste for
Hmm.
some of the people that they were not fully agreeing with the change. But with others, they will just become a normal thing. But that's why I say it's important to listen to your people and uh, change those arrangements and work arrangements as well, if possible. because that's another thing, if possible. And if not possible, you need to have a really good reason why and be open and honest about it.
So if we speak about listening to people and to your employees, I've crossed McKinsey report that they ask people about the remote working, and 76% of employers in Europe, based on this research, 86% in America, and 78% in Asia said that some kind of remote working is wanted. And I
Mm,
also checked this data, cross this data with the Jones Lang LaSalle Asia, so JLL
mm,
Asia, which is one of the biggest corporations around the world that is specialized in renting out the properties, commercial properties and office properties as well, and managing them as well. And these are data from 2019, matched with data from 2022. So after this period of world stop. And
mm,
regarding the office vacancies, so available offices on the market, in 2022 in Bangkok, the number of offices were doubled. In Hong Kong, also doubled. In London, nearly doubled. And in Paris La Défense, so the business district of Paris, the number of the available offices were tripled. So it's a trend, and in my opinion, it's increasing. And this brings me to the question I would like to ask you, Michał. What are
mm,
your top three predictions for the remote working
mm,
trends or tendencies that will happen in the
mm,
near future? Let's say in the next, for example, 1, 2 years.
mm. Well, I think that we might see a bit more regulations around that,
Mhm.
um, like formal, informal law or just bylaws or regulations from governments on what is flexible working or remote working arrangements and what can be done, what cannot be done, what should be done, etc. Um, I think that that's one of the things. The other trend I think we might spark and we talked about it briefly, people having multiple jobs at the same time.
Mhm.
Uh,
So
that's
overemployment.
overemployment. That's right. And that's the I think that it might just become more popular because if you can do your work, for say in 40 hours, you can do work for two employers or one and a half, let's say,
Or free. I've got
employers.
friends who work for free companies at the same
Yep.
time.
Yeah, and it's and that's again, it's a little bit back to those regulations as well. What does it mean overemployment? If you're doing this, are you employee or you're a contractor? Because that's a legal difference as well. Because
Mhm.
overemployment means if you have let's say three employers, it means you have three times your annual holidays, sick leaves, allowances, etc., which is not true because you can only have this 40 hours per week, uh,
Mhm.
technically, right? One employer. So I think that this can be I don't say a trend, but we might just look closely in what companies and governments are doing with that particular thing. And the third, I think, might be the regulations, but more companies don't see this really as people coming back to the office as it was pre-COVID. Um, there are conversations about them. Companies are kind of making people go back to the offices. Um, some of them not really. I think we talked about this in our January podcast about the flexidus thing, that we might see people resigning from work if there are no flexible working arrangements available.
It
Uh,
was in
I think,
in our vlog in January, I think. Yes,
yeah, I think
it
so. It was the summary of January.
it was the summer. Okay, I will put this summary of January into the highlights, so you can click into our summary of January and check what is the flexibus that Michał is talking about.
All right, awesome. So I think that well, companies might just look more closely again with their flexible working arrangement, test different things, and just I think it's continuously an ongoing thing, just seeing what works and what doesn't work for employees and for the company, and adjusting and pivoting what's needed. So it's not really a trend, as you say, but I don't think that's something. Flexible work arrangements are a thing set in stone. I think that it will be changing, it will be evolving, and we might see some changes in that space as well. Especially when we're talking about well-being, I think this is when we're going to see potentially some research or what was the impact. Now we have data, and we're building this data over the last 2 years now with remote working. And some of the things you can't see in just like first 3 or 6 months, you will need to wait for its effect or benefits or whatever to realize within the next few years. So we might see some research on that, or what was the impact of flexible working in long term, like 3 or 4 years. And this will actually also bring some more insights and changes to the workplaces.
Okay. Fine. Great. Thank you.
There you go. My 3 things. You put me on the spotlight there.
Yeah, it's really interesting how you think. Your mind is very interesting, how you process data, and you can predict trends. So therefore, I couldn't help myself to ask you this question.
Well, I don't know if I'm a good predictor or not. I'm not an expert. I don't consider myself as an expert. In my opinion, is just an opinion. So I'll be curious even to hear from other people what they think it's going to be what's next for flexible working and for this year, for next year, for the next 5-10 years even. Because I think more than 5-10 years we're going to be different from what we know now.
I think it will be totally different. Adding to your points, the upcoming 4 days working time, so 4 days at work. If this will pass, it will change everything. Especially, for example, it will make the trend of overemployment, in my opinion, stronger, because you will not be allowed to work 5 days a week. So you will be to maintain the same level of income. People will be forced to look for other jobs simultaneously. The second thing that I would like to also add would be the migration of people because of the changing cost of living and economical and political situations across Europe and USA. So we will see more and more people that are working in a different time zones for their employers. And this will be a strong trend, in my opinion, over the next 2-3 years. And the third one will be the problem with for the companies like JLL or CBRE or Cushman and Wakefield, who manage, which manage the real estates, office spaces, and so on. Because if we see the trend of shrinking office sizes, then they will have to face the fact that they have plenty of space that is not useful. So there will be a huge movement on the market. What to do with these spaces is there a way to turn them into a premium lofts? Because usually those places are in a premium localizations with that are very well commuted with other parts of the city, with great landmarks and spot marks as well. So what to do with the empty spaces? Because the empty building is generating a lot of costs that must be covered. So also there might be a trend regarding the new to find the new usability for the empty spaces.
I think this is a really interesting one. I haven't even thought about that, to be fair, in terms of the office. Like it's a given, the office spaces are shrinking because we don't need like people 5 days a week. So the occupancy levels are,
or 4 days a week if the law will be enforced.
or even 4 days a week. But that's when flexibility, maybe you'll be working from Monday to Thursday, I'll be working from Tuesday to Friday. So that's it's still 4 days a week, and it's a flexibility of choosing your days of work. Right?
Yes, and this also brings up the problem of the empty space. I mean, because if you rent something out and this space is 3 days off during the week, it's almost a half of a week. Yeah.
Mm.
So should you
Yeah.
pay a full price? Should you pay a half price? This is a different approach, and this also will be discussed, and is already discussed in the market. So
Mm.
huge changes are coming.
And just to add to that, I know that some of the companies that own their own the buildings, for example, the offices, they sublease already, and it happens. It's getting more popular and popular. That
Hmm.
we have this beautiful building, 5 floors, and we are located in floor 2 and 3, but 4 and 5 are different company or even
Hmm.
multiple companies because
Yeah.
sometimes they need just smaller spaces. And it's already happening, and this is why how the companies try to deal with
Long-term
say
agreements they have on their necks.
yeah, but how they deal with empty offices and how they use the office space so they don't pay, like they generate maybe some income from it or just cover and offset their costs.
That's right. Okay. So I think we exhausted the topic for today.
Well, I'm pretty sure we could talk about it for many, many more hours because there's a lot to cover. But I think those are the main things to discuss with the flexible working arrangements. And I hope that it was also interesting for the viewers that maybe got some inspiration and you look at things or at flexible working arrangements or ideas from a slightly different perspective. So that will be my expectations, but I hope that people will get at least one moment and say, I haven't thought about that. That would
Hmm.
be my win.
Okay. So thank you very much for the frame of pluses and minuses for you, Michał, from your side.
Thank you.
We hope that you find our ideas and thoughts interesting. If you do, please leave us a thumb up. Also subscribe to our channel. There are plenty of materials that we started to record from the beginning of the year. So almost every week we try to add something new, and in the end of the month you will also find the wrap up, so the summary of the month for the highlights what happened in health and HR and well-being around the world. Great. So see you guys next Wednesday. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and have a good day or good night in Auckland. Bye bye.